Hi everybody, welcome to my newest YouTube video. For this tutorial, I'll be tying a version of my Stonefly for you. Before I start tying, after I get my thread on here, I just want to mention I have a tungsten bead, but please take a quick peek at this hook. I'm tying a hook. I'm tying on a hook that's called the J100BL. It's put out there by Allen Fly Fishing. It's a really great hook. Aside from being barbless, you may notice that it is a jig hook, and that is really something that a lot of fly tyers have been switching to recently, especially in the last couple years with a lot of the Jig nymphing methods. The one great thing about using a hook like this is that it does not ride like you see it right now. Whenever it rides in the water, it will be riding with that hook point up. That's a really great thing to have, but it's also something that as a tyer you have to keep in mind, because you don't have to worry so much about wing cases, wing pads, and ensuring that you have certain things on one side or another of the hook. In this case, you almost really have to concentrate on having all of your materials placed 360 degrees around the hook. Now that is going to make it a little difficult for this stonefly, because stoneflies are known for certain characteristics, and I will mention those as I'm tying this. But for right now, just take a quick peek at the hook, take a look at it, start to wonder or think about some different things you can do with it. It again is it's put out there by Allen Fly Fishing. It's the J100BL, and I'm using it in a size 12. I'll explain a few of the things that I'm doing throughout this tutorial. For instance, right now I'm going to the back and I'm going to be tying on my tail for the stonefly. The one thing that stoneflies are known for, they're known for having two tails split. To achieve that, I'm going to first put in just a little dubbing ball at the back, because I want to really ensure that those tails are separated. If you notice, this dubbing ball might be bigger than that which you're normally used to seeing, but I really want to ensure that those tails are kept separated. For my tails, I'm just going to simply be using a couple of turkey buyouts. Color's black, so these are the buyouts. You can see where I've trimmed this one already. I'm going to take out a couple of these buyouts, one from each side. I'm going to tie them in so the concave side is facing out. Now you can tie these in one at a time if you're just beginning, or if you've been tying for a while, it's a little bit easier to tie them both in at the same time. I'm just going to simply grab them, make sure the tips are approximately the same length. I'm going to put them going from the bottom up to kind of separate them. I don't want this tail to be too wide, or too long. So I'm just going to place them in there to an approximate length, pinch them with my left hand, and then wrap directly in front of that tying ball. Just going to make a few loose wraps, then really just lock them in there. Then I'll tie back just to ensure that they are separated. I'll give you a quick peek at them. You can see it from the top that they are separated really nice by having that dubbing ball in there. Then I come back and just trim away the butt ends of those fibers. Okay, at this point, it doesn't really matter which direction you go, but I'm just going to leave my thread in the back. I'm going to grab a piece of ultra wire. This is brassy size. Another really great defining characteristic of a stonefly is having a really wide body. So what I'm going to do is just tie in a piece of brassy wire along the side of this hook that's facing you. So I'm just going to tie it in, quickly wrap it in place. I may leave relatively loose wraps so I can play around with it and make sure that it's tied directly along the side. I may wrap back. I'm going to trim it right before it gets to those tail fibers. Now let me give you a peek at what's going on. At this point, I've just widened the body just a hair, nothing crazy yet. But I'm going to grab another piece. This time I'm going to leave it a little bit longer because I'm actually going to be using it to rib. This time I'm going to put this piece on the side that's facing me. Again, I'm just going to wrap it rather loosely, adjust it so it's riding alongside, and just lock it in place. So now if you take a look at it, it's been wide, that body has been widened considerably. Some tyers in the past, on ways to achieve this, they've wrapped in lead wire, then they've used pliers to flatten it. And that's another really easy but a very effective tying method that tyers use. All right, my final piece that I'm going to be tying in is just a piece of black vinyl ribbing. One side is rounded, the other side is flat. Whenever I tie this in, I'm going to make sure the flat side is facing up because I really want the rounded side showing as I am wrapping it. So I just snipped away a short piece. If you want to really widen your body a little bit more, if your stoneflies are that much more or that much wider, you're more than welcome to also tie this in along one side. I'm not going to worry so much about it. I'm just going along the top. So now, just to give you an idea of what I have going on, I have my ultra wire, my ribbing, then my two tails. Now, a lot of tiers, and myself included, sometimes will simply just wrap this up, and it really gives a nice, sleek profile. However, I'm going to add one more piece here. I just have some relatively just basic black dubbing. It's got a little bit of shine in it. I'll hold it up so you can see it. I'll just kind of move it around back and forth. It's black, but it's got a couple, like a Flashaboo type material in there. I'm just going to dub this on relatively light, about 3 inches worth of dubbing. Now, if you're a beginning tyer, your teacher's probably told you you got to keep a lot of tension, or you got to keep the right tension whenever you're dubbing. When you get to this point, tell your teacher, no, you're wrong, because at this point, whenever I dub in this dubbing, I'm not going to keep a lot of tension on it. It's relatively light tension just to get that dubbing in place. Nothing more. And that's all I really want. In fact, I probably could put just a hair more, but it's really not that important whenever you get near the top of this fly, because that bead has got a little bit of room to play around with, but I'll just add a little bit more. So this is going to be the underbody of my stonefly, and if you look at it, it really looks kind of bulky right now, and it kind of looks like a stonefly, but that's really not what we go for in terms of representing the stonefly. So let me first wrap in this vinyl rib. Whenever I'm wrapping this, I'm going to keep those wraps relatively close together, but I want to ensure that there's just a little bit of that dubbing sticking out. Okay, so I got the rib first, and then I'm going to follow it just directly in front of each one with my ultra wire. This ultra wire is placed in there for a couple different reasons. First of all, it's adding weight to the fly. We want this fly on the bottom, aside from riding like a jig, which is extremely effective whenever you're dead drifting, especially underneath an indicator. That ribbing is going to be protecting my vinyl. This ultra wire is protecting my vinyl rib. So by keeping it in there, if a fish does bite, and if it does take away a little bit of your ribbing, that ultra wire is there to protect it. Now I'm going to put one half hitch, and I'm going to just kind of get rid of my thread for the time being. Now if you take a look at this, it's, I'm pretty happy with how it is right now. There's a couple little stragglies, and that's okay. But the one other, component of this that I really like to stress is the gill structure. If you look in between each of my vinyl ribs, it kind of looks like there's gills that are poking out, but I really want to just make that just seem to pop off this fly. So what I'm going to do is just grab my little trusty piece of Velcro, and I'm going to pick them apart. I'm just going to pick out all that dubbing. This is why I've put a half hitch in my thread, because I don't want to accidentally get that to come off. So I'm just going to pick apart my dubbing. So a little bit at a time, which if you think back to me, whenever I was dubbing it and I said you got to keep it loose, this is why. You want to allow that dubbing to come out whenever you are applying a little bit of Velcro to it. All right, and that's it. Now this is really a buggy looking fly, and if you want to keep it like this, you're more than welcome to, but you're not really going to be truly representing the stonefly. I'm going to next take my scissors. I'm just going to trim all this stuff that I just picked out. I'm going to leave just a little bit close to the fly, but again, you have to trim it all 360 degrees, because you have to remember this fly is going to be more than likely riding in this fashion. Okay, you're going to need to take your fingers at some point, just pick out some of those longer fibers so you're able to trim them. If you don't get them all, that is not a bad thing. And for the most part, I'm going to call that finished for now, if that makes sense. Now when you take a look at this, you can really see that gill structure showing itself. And that those gills are really popping out in between each of those wraps. All right, but finally, the last key component to my stonefly is the legs. A lot of tyers really like to go crazy when it comes to the legs on stoneflies and make them look as realistic as possible. I'm not going to go extremely crazy. What I'm going to do is just grab a little piece of black CDC. I pick off some fibers, about 6 at a time. I'm just going to simply lock them in place right at the top. Then I trim the butt ends. I think I missed one there. I think I'm going to turn my fly just a little bit. Do the same thing. Grab a few more. Lock them in place. If they go a little long, oops, I think I lost those ones. If they go a little long while you're locking them in place, that's okay. You can always pick them off with your fingers later. It's a little tricky to do that whenever you have your fly upside down like that. Okay, now at this point, if you look, I have a lot showing on your side, but then when I get it over to here, there's not as many showing, so I'm just going to grab a couple more. Again, remember, this fly is going to be bouncing on the bottom. That fish is not going to be counting each of its legs. More than likely, you're going to be fishing this early season. The water is going to be a little off color. Don't be afraid to go a little heavy on these legs. That's a prominent feature of the nymph, not at all necessarily for that dun. But whenever you have this nymph in the water, you want that fish to know that those legs are there. Okay, so as I turn this, I'm looking for those prominent features of the stonefly. We got my separated tails, 2 tails. We got a little gill structure. We have some nice bodies showing that black vinyl rib and the ultra wire. Then we have our legs. Now at this point, you can simply tie off the fly by putting in a half hitch and a whip finish. If you finish it off here, great. If you want to add a little bit of dubbing to the front to hide some of that thread, you're more than welcome to. Me, I like to take it one step further. I love to add a little hot spot to kind of separate my fly from yours. So I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm going to be adding a little bit of Glow Bright number 1. It's a really hot pink color. I'm going to start this off by the hook section, just put in a few wraps, then I trim off the Glow Bright. This stuff frays very easily, as you can probably see the thread even separating on the video. So I like to trim it. I don't like to tear that off. I'm just going to make around 5 wraps back. If you look at this fly upside down as well, it'll be visible at nearly all points. I'm going to stop after putting in those. Put a single half hitch. Okay, once I have that half hitch, I'm going to grab it, whip finish it. And again, I'm going to trim this with my scissors tight, just so it doesn't fray. And then I'm going to immediately grab my head cement, and I'm going to head cement the top of this. I'm going to head cement over all of my Glow Bright over that hot spot. And the nice thing is, if anything happens while you're fishing and that hot spot comes off, you have your black thread underneath. And your black thread has also been whip finished. So you have really nothing to worry about. This fly is not coming apart anytime soon. Okay. I try not to get too much on that CDC. Alright, that's really it. I may have gone a little crazy. I just touched it a little bit with my finger, get some of that excess off. And there is my finished fly. That is my stonefly on the J100BL jig hook by Allen Fly Fishing. Just a great looking hook. If you take a look at this fly as I show you the different angles, you'll see that CDC really just jumping out, representing the legs and the nice body structure. As I finish, I'm going to turn the fly this way. And I pull these legs out just a hair, give you an exact look of how this fly is going to be going through the water. This is my finished black stonefly. I highly encourage you checking out some of these hooks and tying up a bunch of these and getting them ready for early season fly fishing in your local trout stream. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them directly on this page, or you can email me at tcammisa@gmail.com. And again, the featured hook we were using was by Allen Fly Fishing at allenflyfishing.com. Thank you, everybody.